What happens when a beloved actor sits down for what should be a routine interview, only to face the most shocking and unprofessional treatment ever caught on live television? In just 39 seconds, one host's outrageous behavior would destroy her reputation and reveal the ugly truth about Hollywood's most entitled personalities. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about what you're about to hear. This is going to blow your mind. Picture this. The cameras are rolling, the studio lights are blazing, and millions of viewers are tuned in for what they think will be a normal celebrity interview. But what unfolds next is anything but normal. What we witnessed was a complete meltdown from a host who clearly thought she could say whatever she wanted to her guests. Our story begins when Mel Gibson walks onto the set of Jennifer Hudson's talk show. Now, Mel has been in Hollywood for decades. He's seen it all, done it all, and earned respect through years of hard work and incredible performances. He's there to promote his latest project, expecting the usual friendly conversation that guests get when they appear on these shows. But from the moment he sits down, something feels off. Jennifer Hudson, who should be grateful to have such a legendary actor on her show, immediately starts with an attitude that catches everyone off guard. Instead of the warm welcome you'd expect, she looks at Mel with this cold stare and says, "Well, well, well, look who decided to show up." Mel, being the professional he is, just smiles and responds, "Good to be here, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on the show." But Jennifer isn't done. She leans back in her chair with this smug expression and continues, "I have to say, I'm surprised you agreed to come on. Most people in your situation would be hiding under a rock somewhere." The audience starts to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This isn't how interviews usually start. Mel keeps his cool and asks, "What situation would that be exactly?" And this is where Jennifer really shows her true colors. She starts laughing, not a friendly laugh, but this mean-spirited cackle, and says, "Oh, come on, don't play dumb with me. We all know what you've done. We all know who you really are." Mel's face changes. You can see he's confused and starting to get upset, but he's still trying to keep things professional. He says, "Jennifer, I came here to talk about my new film. If you have some kind of problem with me, maybe we should discuss this off camera." But Jennifer is just getting started. She waves her hand dismissively and says, "No, we're doing this right here, right now. My audience deserves to know the truth about the people we put on pedestals." The camera operators don't know what to do. The producers in the booth are probably freaking out, but Jennifer keeps going. She looks directly into the camera and says, "Folks, this is what Hollywood really looks like. This is what happens when we give people power and fame they don't deserve." Mel stands up at this point. He's had enough. "Jennifer, I don't know what your problem is, but I'm not going to sit here and let you attack me for no reason." Jennifer jumps up too, and now they're both standing, facing each other across the coffee table. She points her finger right at him and says, "No reason? No reason? Are you kidding me right now?" The studio audience is dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Even the band in the corner has stopped playing. Everyone knows they're witnessing something that's never happened before on daytime television. Mel, still trying to be the bigger person, says, "Look, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is not professional. This is not how you treat guests on your show." Jennifer laughs again, that same nasty laugh, and says, "Professional? You want to talk to me about being professional? That's rich coming from someone like you." At this point, Mel's patience is wearing thin, but he's still keeping his voice calm and measured. "Someone like me? What does that even mean?" Jennifer walks around the coffee table, getting closer to Mel, and the tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. She says, "It means someone who thinks they can just waltz in here and act like nothing ever happened. Someone who thinks they're above consequences." Mel shakes his head and says, "Jennifer, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. I came here in good faith to do an interview, and you're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal." And then Jennifer crosses a line that nobody saw coming. She gets right up in his face and says, "Maybe because you are one. Maybe because people like you think you can get away with anything just because you're famous." The audience gasps. Some people start murmuring to each other. The producers are definitely trying to figure out how to handle this situation. But Mel, to his credit, doesn't lose his temper. Instead, he takes a step back and says very calmly, "That's enough. I'm not going to stand here and let you make false accusations against me." Jennifer isn't backing down though. If anything, she's getting more aggressive. She says, "False accusations? False accusations? Everyone knows what kind of person you really are." Mel looks around the studio, at the audience, at the cameras, at the crew members who are all staring in shock, And he says, "This is unbelievable. I've never been treated like this in my entire career." Jennifer crosses her arms and says, "Well, maybe it's about time someone called you out." At this point, security is starting to move. You can see them at the edges of the stage, waiting for a signal from the producers. But Mel isn't causing any trouble. He's the one being attacked, and he's handling it with more grace than most people would. He looks directly at Jennifer and says, "I don't know what's wrong with you today, but this is not okay. This is not how you treat people, famous or not." Jennifer throws her hands up in the air and says, "Oh, now you're the victim? Now you're the one being mistreated? That's perfect. That's just perfect." The whole situation is spiraling completely out of control, and it's all because of Jennifer's bizarre and unprofessional behavior. Mel takes a deep breath and tries one more time to salvage what's left of this disaster. He says, "Jennifer, I think we got off on the wrong foot here. Can we just start over and have a normal conversation?" But Jennifer is way past the point of reason. She starts pacing back and forth like a caged animal and says, "Start over? Start over? Do you think this is some kind of game? Do you think you can just snap your fingers and make everything go away?" The audience is getting more uncomfortable by the minute. Some people are whispering to each other. Others are looking around like they want to leave. Nobody signed up to watch a celebrity get ambushed on live television. Mel sits back down, hoping that if he stays calm and composed, maybe Jennifer will follow his lead. He says, "I'm not trying to make anything go away. I just want to understand what's happening here." Jennifer stops pacing and stares at him with this look of pure disgust. She says, "What's happening here is that I'm not going to sit here and pretend like you're some kind of saint. What's happening here is that someone finally has the courage to tell the truth." Mel leans forward and asks, "The truth about what, Jennifer? You keep making these vague accusations, but you haven't actually said what I'm supposed to have done wrong." And this is where Jennifer really shows how unhinged she's become. She starts laughing maniacally and says, "Oh, you want me to spell it out for you? You want me to list all your sins right here in front of everyone?" Mel spreads his hands and says, "Jennifer, I honestly don't know what sins you're talking about. If I've done something to offend you personally, I apologize. But I don't even remember meeting you before today." Jennifer's face turns red with anger. She says, "You don't remember meeting me? You don't remember meeting me? That says everything right there. That says everything about the kind of person you are." The confusion on Mel's face is genuine. He says, "I meet hundreds of people every month. If we've met before and I don't remember, that doesn't make me a bad person. It just makes me human." But Jennifer is having none of it. She walks over to her desk and slams her hand down on it so hard that everyone in the studio jumps. She says, "Human? You think you're human? You think you deserve to be treated like a normal person after everything you've put people through?" Mel stands up again, and you can see he's starting to lose his patience, but he's still trying to keep his voice level. He says, "Jennifer, I came here to talk about my movie. I didn't come here to be attacked by someone I've never wronged." Jennifer spins around and points at him again. She says, "Never wronged? Never wronged? Are you seriously going to stand there and act like you've never hurt anyone in your entire life?" Mel throws his hands up and says, "Of course I've made mistakes in my life. Everyone has. But I don't understand why you're acting like I personally destroyed your world." Jennifer starts walking toward him again, and the security guards are getting ready to step in. She says, "Because people like you think you can do whatever you want and never face any consequences. People like you think you're untouchable." Mel backs up a step and says, "People like me? What does that mean? What category are you putting me in?" Jennifer gets right up in his face again and says, "You know exactly what category. Don't pretend to be stupid. Don't insult my intelligence and the intelligence of everyone watching." The camera operators are zooming in on both of their faces, capturing every moment of this incredible meltdown. Mel looks directly into Jennifer's eyes and says, "I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. If you have something specific to say to me, then say it. Stop dancing around whatever your problem is." Jennifer steps back and crosses her arms again. She says, "Fine. You want me to be specific? You want me to lay it all out there?" Mel nods and says, "Yes, I do, because this whole thing is insane." Jennifer takes a deep breath like she's about to deliver some devastating blow. She says, "You represent everything that's wrong with this industry. You represent everything that's toxic and harmful about Hollywood." Mel stares at her for a moment and then says, "That's it? That's your big accusation? That I represent something you don't like?" Jennifer's voice gets higher and more shrill. She says, "That's not just something I don't like. That's something that hurts people. That's something that destroys lives." Mel shakes his head and says, "Jennifer, You don't even know me. You've never worked with me. You've never spent time with me. And based on today, you've barely even met me. How can you possibly judge what kind of person I am?" Jennifer laughs that horrible laugh again and says, "I don't need to know you personally. I know what you stand for. I know what you represent." At this point, Mel's voice starts to rise just a little bit. He says, "What I represent? What I represent is someone who's worked hard for 30 years to build a career and provide for his family. What I represent is someone who's tried to make good movies and entertain people." Jennifer rolls her eyes and says, "Oh, please, spare me the sob story. Spare me the poor little victim routine." Mel's face flushes with anger, but he still keeps his voice controlled. He says, "Victim routine? You invited me on your show, and you've been attacking me from the moment I sat down. If anyone's a victim here, it's me." Jennifer starts clapping slowly, sarcastically. She says, "Bravo, bravo, that's perfect. Turn it around and make yourself the victim. That's exactly what I expected." The audience doesn't know what to do. Some people are booing, but it's not clear if they're booing Mel or Jennifer. The whole situation has become so bizarre that nobody knows who to support. Mel looks around the studio and then back at Jennifer. He says, "You know what? I'm done. I'm not going to stand here and let you continue this character assassination." Jennifer claps her hands together and says, "There it is. There's the real you. The moment things get uncomfortable, you run away." Mel starts walking toward the exit, but he turns back and says, "I'm not running away from anything. I'm walking away from someone who clearly has serious problems." Jennifer follows him and says, "Problems? You think I have problems? The only problem I have is with people like you who think they can get away with anything." Mel stops walking and turns around one more time. He says, "For the last time, get away with what? What exactly do you think I've gotten away with?" Jennifer gets right up close to him again and says, "You really want to know? You really want me to say it out loud for everyone to hear?" Mel looks her straight in the eye and says, "Yes, I want you to say it, because I'm tired of these games." Jennifer takes a dramatic pause, like she's about to drop some huge bombshell. The entire studio is holding its breath. She opens her mouth and says, "You've gotten away with being mediocre. You've gotten away with making boring movies that nobody cares about." The silence that follows is deafening. Even the audience seems confused. That's it? That's her big revelation? Mel stares at her like he can't believe what he just heard. He says, "Are you serious right now? This entire meltdown is because you don't like my movies?" Jennifer nods, like she just exposed some massive conspiracy. She says, "It's not just about your movies. It's about how you've coasted on your reputation for years while taking opportunities away from more deserving actors." Mel starts laughing, not meanly, but like he can't believe this is really happening. He says, "Jennifer, that's called having a career. That's called being successful in a competitive industry." But Jennifer is doubling down on her ridiculous position. She says, "Successful? Is that what you call it? I call it taking up space that should go to people with real talent." The audience is starting to turn on Jennifer now. You can hear people mumbling things like, "This is crazy," and "What is she doing?" But she's too far gone to notice. Mel shakes his head and says, "So let me get this straight. You invited me on your show just so you could tell me you think I'm a bad actor?" Jennifer crosses her arms defiantly and says, "Someone had to say it. Someone had to call you out for pretending to be something you're not." Mel looks around at all the cameras and crew members who are witnessing this insanity. He says, "Jennifer, even if you think I'm a terrible actor, which is your opinion, this is not how professional people behave. This is not how you treat guests." Jennifer waves her hand dismissively again and says, "Professional? You want to talk about professional? What's professional about phoning in performances for 20 years? At this point, some people in the audience are actually starting to boo Jennifer. Others are calling out things like, "Leave him alone," and "This isn't right." But she's completely lost in her own world of anger and resentment. Mel takes a deep breath and says, "You know what, Jennifer? I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for someone who's so bitter and angry that they would humiliate themselves on national television just to tear down another person." Jennifer's face turns even redder. She says, "You feel sorry for me? You feel sorry for me? I'm the one telling the truth here. I'm the one with integrity." Mel starts walking toward the exit again, but this time, he's really leaving. He says over his shoulder, "Integrity doesn't involve ambushing people who trusted you enough to come on your show." Jennifer follows him again, practically screaming now. She says, "Don't you dare walk away from me. Don't you dare act like you're above this conversation." Mel stops at the edge of the stage and turns around one final time. His voice is calm but firm when he says, "I'm not above anything, but I'm not going to participate in whatever this breakdown is that you're having." Jennifer points her finger at him and shouts, "Breakdown? This isn't a breakdown. This is me finally saying what everyone else is too scared to say." Mel looks directly into the main camera and addresses the audience at home. He says, "I came here today to talk about a project I'm passionate about. Instead, I've been subjected to personal attacks for reasons I still don't understand. This is not what I signed up for." Jennifer rushes over and tries to get between Mel and the camera. She says, "Don't try to make yourself look like the victim here. Don't try to turn this around on me." But the damage is already done. The audience can see exactly who the real victim is. They can see who's being reasonable and who's acting completely out of line. Mel gently moves around Jennifer and continues talking to the camera. He says, "I've been in this business for a long time, and I've never experienced anything like this. I hope viewers can see what really happened here today." Jennifer is practically having a complete meltdown now. She says, "What really happened is that someone finally had the courage to tell you the truth about yourself." Mel looks at her with a mixture of pity and disappointment. He says, "Jennifer, the truth is that you've embarrassed yourself, you've embarrassed your show, and you've shown a complete lack of professionalism and basic human decency." The security guards are finally stepping in. They're not grabbing anyone or being aggressive, but they're clearly ready to escort people off the stage, if necessary. One of them approaches Jennifer and quietly says something to her. Jennifer shrugs off the security guard and says, "I don't need security. I'm not the problem here." Mel adjusts his jacket and says, "You're right, Jennifer. You're not a problem. You're a cautionary tale about what happens when someone lets their personal issues cloud their professional judgment." Jennifer makes one last desperate attempt to justify her behavior. She says, "Personal issues? This isn't personal. This is about holding people accountable." Mel is almost at the exit now. He turns back and says, "Accountable for what? For having a career you're jealous of? For being successful in ways you haven't been?" That comment hits Jennifer like a physical blow. Her whole face changes, and for a moment, you can see that Mel has hit on the real truth. This whole thing has been about jealousy and resentment from the very beginning. Jennifer's voice gets quiet and dangerous. She says, "How dare you suggest that I'm jealous of you?" Mel stops walking and says, "If it's not jealousy, then what is it? Because nothing you've said today makes any sense otherwise." Jennifer looks around the studio like she's just realizing that everyone is staring at her, that the cameras are rolling, that this is all being broadcast live. The reality of what she's done is starting to sink in. But instead of apologizing or trying to salvage the situation, she doubles down one more time. She says, "You know what? I'm glad this happened. I'm glad everyone got to see what you're really like when someone challenges you." Mel laughs softly and says, "What I'm really like? Jennifer, all I've done is try to understand why you're attacking me and attempt to maintain some dignity in an impossible situation. If that's what I'm really like, then I'm proud of it." The producers are clearly in his ear now, probably telling Jennifer to wrap this up or cut to commercial, but she ignores them and makes one final desperate play for sympathy. She looks into the camera and says, "This is what happens when you try to speak truth to power in Hollywood. This is what happens when you try to hold people accountable." Mel shakes his head sadly and says, "No, Jennifer. This is what happens when someone uses their platform to bully and attack an innocent person. This is what happens when professionalism dies." And with that, Mel Gibson walks off the stage, leaving Jennifer Hudson standing alone in front of a confused audience, a shocked crew, and millions of viewers who just witnessed one of the most unprofessional displays in television history. Jennifer tries to regain control, but it's too late. The damage is done. She's shown her true colors, and there's no taking it back. As Mel disappears through the exit, you can see Jennifer finally starting to realize the magnitude of what she's just done to herself and her career.